From the Oklahoma newsroom, this is the Press Row. I'm Jenni Carlson here with Barry Tramel. It's time for We Pick 'em, Barry, and of course our picks this week revolve around the Thunder coaching search. We've got 5 names. We're going to go thumbs up, thumbs down. Let's start with this one, Barry. Kevin Ollie, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I will say thumbs up on Kevin Ollie. Now, report out of CBS Sports today that Ollie's withdrawn his name from consideration. We'll see if that holds. Maybe it means he's out of the running. Maybe it doesn't. But I like Ollie as a candidate. He's got a good track record with the Thunder. Spent a quality year here, really connected with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Guy of high quality. Sam Presti very high on Kevin Ollie, even back when he was a journeyman point guard. So I'm thumbs up on Kevin Ollie. Yeah,
I am too. Definitely thumbs up on his track record. You know, I think that not all college coaches are cut the same, and we'll talk about another one here in a second. We'll dive into it a little bit more. But the fact that Kevin Ollie played as long as he did in the NBA and towards the end of his career became something of almost a pseudo coach in a lot of ways, was very instrumental in you know, talking to guys, managing personalities, being more of a guy in the locker room who other players who were on the floor could lean on it in terms of, you know, what was going on the court, what did they need to do off the court, how did they need to act, how did they need to treat each other. So I think he was in some ways, you know, serving as almost an NBA assistant those final years of his career. So obviously his track record at UConn has been good, but I think it's more about his track record as an NBA player than anything that I give him thumbs up. All right, what about this guy, Barry? Billy Donovan, the Florida coach. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm actually thumbs down on Billy Donovan, and nothing against Donovan. He's a fantastic college coach. This is a guy, we all think of Billy Donovan as a young guy, but that Final Four with Providence has now been 28 years ago, 1987. He played 44 games in the NBA, but he's been on college campuses for 30 of the last 31 years. And the NBA is a constantly fluid organism. I don't know how he would adapt to the NBA. We've seen some young guys go in, Brad Stevens among them, do well at the NBA level off college campuses, but for an older coach, which is what Billy Donovan is now, I just think it's a risk.
Well, and I do too. I'm giving Billy Donovan thumbs down as well. And, you know, I think a lot of people are intrigued by a guy like Brad Stevens who has the Celtics back in the playoffs. But I think it's important to remember that the team he took over and the place where the Celtics were when Brad Stevens became their coach is a wholly different place than where this Thunder team is. Brad Stevens, who'd never coached, had been a head coach in the NBA, could go in with a young, inexperienced, and some would say not so good Celtics roster and learn his way. He didn't have to win right away. Well, guess what? The guy who comes in to coach the Thunder, he is going to be expected to win and win big right away. So there's no learning curve. He's got to be ready to go. And that's why I think a guy like Billy Donovan, Bill Self, Barry, I mean, fantastic coaches, great college coaches, and maybe they would become great NBA coaches. To me, the risk is big when you're talking about guys that don't have any NBA coaching experience, extensive. I just think it's a big, big risk for a guy like Billy Donovan. All right, Barry, what about this name? Mark Jackson. Is he a thumbs up or is he a thumbs down?
He's a thumbs up for me because of what he did at Golden State and really established the defensive culture at Golden State. Now, he was fired. Steve Kerr's come in. They're much better this year. But the truth of the matter is Mark Jackson got the Warriors good. They were 26th in the league his first year in defensive efficiency. He improved that to 13th the next year, and in his final year, 4th. So he really put a defensive stamp on the Warriors that we see today, and they're either first or second in this current season. So I like what Mark Jackson did. There's some questions about his offensive efficiency. Maybe doesn't have an offensive system that you can really count on. Some of the same criticism labeled at Scotty Brooks, but I think Mark Jackson would bring instant credibility plus that defensive presence.
Yeah, you mentioned instant credibility, and that's one of the big reasons I give Mark Jackson a thumbs up as well. I think that the fact that he's a long-time NBA player who then coached, but when he was a player, he was a point guard. So when you're talking about building credibility, one of the guys that you've got to build credibility with is Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook's going to look at Mark Jackson and say, hey, this guy has done what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm sure Jackson will have to earn respect as he goes, but he does have a track record, and I think we've seen Russell Westbrook do well with guys that have played in the league, who've played that guard position. We saw his relationship with Mo Cheeks was pretty good. Even Scott Brooks being a former point guard, he and Russell Westbrook had a good relationship. So I think you've got to have a good rapport there, and I think Mark Jackson would. And Barry, what you said about defense, I'm totally on board with. This team's got to get better defensively, and Mark Jackson looks like a guy who would want to improve the Thunder's defense. All right, Barry, what about another NBA name? Now, this guy still has a job, but thumbs up or thumb down for current Chicago coach Tom Thibodeau?
Well, it's thumbs up on Tom Thibodeau. And here's the deal. People believe that he will be out. He's butted heads with management in Chicago. They believe this will be his last year with the Bulls. But I love Thibodeau as a coach. He demands his teams play big-time defense. And his offense, he basically leaves alone, lets talented players play. I think that would work with the Thunder, and I think every Thunder player, including the superstars, would be held accountable for their defense, and I think the Thunder would be a total force with Tom Thibodeau coaching. Now, would he alienate a Russell Westbrook? I don't think so. Would he run a Kevin Durant into the ground? That's something that would have to be discussed. Thibodeau loves to play his best players high minutes, but frankly, Scotty Brooks did that too. So I don't know if Thibodeau will be available, but if he is, I would love to see him coaching the Thunder.
Yeah, I am also thumbs up on Tom Thibodeau. Can we start calling him Tibbs? I mean, can we just?
We can.
Let's go Coach Tibbs. I mean, why not? We're practically buddies already. I like a lot of the same things that Barry talked about, but one other thing you got to look at with Tom Thibodeau is the fact that the Bulls have developed young talent, much like the Thunder has. And we got to remember that just because the Thunder has elevated itself to, when it's healthy, an elite status, they're still going to be an organization that's going to have to build through the draft. They're not ever going to be, unless, I don't know, meteor falls out, a golden meteor falls out of the sky and suddenly Oklahoma's awash in money like never before. They're not going to be able to go out and buy championships. They're not going to be able to go out and get those big-time free agents that a lot of teams try to build around. They're going to have to build through the draft. And if you look at guys like Jimmy Butler, Joakim Noah, I mean, just on and on down the list of guys that have come through that Chicago system, he's built talent too there. I like that out of Tom Thibodeau as well. All right, Barry, we're going to give thumbs up to this, but who's your favorite dark horse candidate in this coaching search?
I like Tyronn Lue, the Cleveland Cavaliers assistant. Been a pretty successful assistant coach, a variety of places in the NBA. Still a young guy, though. Lots of you will remember him from his Nebraska days. Played at Nebraska, point guard in the mid-'90s from Raytown, Missouri, your old stomping grounds, suburb of Kansas City. Very up-and-comer. Lots of people believe that he's sort of keeping the Cleveland Cavaliers together, coaching-wise. David Blatt and LeBron James not having the greatest of relationships, it appears. Maybe Tyronn Lue's sort of woven that together and keeping that thing going. So I really like Tyronn Lue.
Another point guard that could come in with some credibility. You also like Mike Malone, the old Sacramento coach.
I do indeed.
All right. My favorite dark horse candidate is going to be Chip England. Now, this is a name that a lot of people may not be really familiar with, but England is an assistant with the Spurs, and he's been with Greg Popovich for a long time. Has had some, his name's been mentioned every now and again for available coaching spots, but as you might imagine, being a Pop assistant, being with the Spurs, it's a pretty good gig. So Chip England has not jumped at any jobs yet. He's the shot doctor, a guy that's largely credited with making Kawhi Leonard and even Tony Parker into better shooters for the Spurs. So you got to like that about him. And then he has connections to Sam Presti. Presti knows him from back in his days in San Antonio, which obviously means that there's also a connection to Clay Bennett, the face of the Thunder ownership group. So I think that there's a possibility. We see Atlanta with a former Spurs assistant now growing great guns. Maybe we see a similar situation here with Chip England. Obviously, a lot still to come on this Thunder coaching search, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.